welcome everyone to a very special VHS Vault. I am the host, VHS host, and next to me we have Frankenstein. It's the fact that your face could go so quickly to Frankenstein. I'm impressed. There you go. Look, when we were coming up with a list of films that we were going to do this year, this is one that I threw on the table because, to me, Jace, I've grown up most of my life. I've known this, well, just about all my life. I've known this to be one of the greatest comedies I have ever seen in my life. It's been that important. It's been so far up on that plateau and on that shelf my whole life, this film. And I don't think it's changed, to be honest with you. But what are your first memories of this?
Well, my first memories of this movie are rather embarrassing because the first time I saw this movie, I was itty bitty. It came on network television on ABC or NBC or CBS or whatever we used to get on the antenna because we were too poor to have cable back then. And I remember watching this movie with my mother and father thinking it was Frankenstein. I had no idea it was Young Frankenstein. I thought this was the classic Frankenstein movie. So I would go and tell my friends, yes, I watched Frankenstein last night. It was really funny. And of course, my friends are like, Frankenstein was funny? That's weird. I always thought it was scary. And it was probably a good couple of years before I realized, no, this is Young Frankenstein. The original Frankenstein is supposed to be scary and dramatic. This one's just having a goof with it all. But yes, whenever you said, let's do Young Frankenstein, I thought, oh, good. It's a movie that I don't have to clear 2 hours out of my schedule to watch because it's currently running on repeat in here all the time. Because I have watched this movie so many times, I could probably recite every single line of it, every single word, every single musical note is running up here. You don't have to worry. Madeline Kahn, Cloris Leachman, Marty Feldman, and of course, the great Peter Boyle and Gene Wilder. You're going to live up here for as long as I do because the movie is forever on repeat in my head and it will never stop. Never stop.
Like you, I think this film was it's become, I first started watching, I reckon, via osmosis. For some reason, this movie was playing a lot as a child, but my first memory wasn't of Young Frankenstein of this movie. It was actually the original Frankenstein. So in my current memory, I remember seeing very young the original Frankenstein and loving that movie. I mean, that's how old I am anyway, that you got to go back. I was watching black and white films and it didn't feel odd. But either way, Frankenstein had a massive impact on me. I reckon 3 years old. And then I reckon about 4 or 5, I have a conscious memory of seeing this. And then, yeah, look, I would just watch it all the time. This has been one of the films that has lasted. Not only as a young child, it's entertaining and funny, and you enjoy it a lot. But when you get to adolescence, through teenage years, young adulthood, and so forth, it feels like there is something for every part as you're growing up. It never, you know what I mean? It doesn't age out.
I completely agree, and I can do you one better. I did not watch the original Frankenstein until well into my college years.
Oh.
Because to me, Young Frankenstein filled that void. I just felt like I want this to be my Frankenstein movie. I don't ever want that to change. Not only is this an incredibly funny movie, but I really don't think that people truly understand how beautiful this movie is. The black and the white, the great camera angles. There's one scene where Terry Garr and Gene Wilder, also Terry Garr, rest in peace, we miss you too.
Yes.
Gene Wilder and Terry Garr are just standing together and they're looking they're looking off camera and the light is just hitting their eyes and making them glisten. And I'm just like, why does Mel Brooks, he's always remembered as a great comedy director, but he has got an eye for shot composition. My cats are playing with my green screen. That is so annoying. Stop it!
Well, I think to add to that, I think part of the magic of this film is it actually plays fairly straight. It looks, like you said, it looks beautiful. And they've clearly used the cameras and the lenses of the period. And I know for the fact, especially in the laboratory scenes, a lot of those props are from the original Frankenstein movie that got reused. So they've certainly shot it like it's a drama. They're staying accurate to the genre. They're not like fooling around. They are making a Frankenstein film. And the funny just really comes from the situations in the script, but everything else is spot on from that period. And it's one of the strengths. It's one of the reasons it remains timeless in a way.
Quite honestly, it's got an interesting structure if you think about it, because usually movies like this have a straight man and the comic relief character, but every single main character in Young Frankenstein has their moment to show their comedic chops, from Gene Wilder to Terry Garr to Madeline Kahn to Peter Boyle to the great Marty Feldman, who steals every single scene he's in, but they all have a chance to shine. And for some reason, usually movies where everybody is the comic relief does not work, but this movie it hits such a sweet spot all the way through and manages to balance all of these actors just having the time of their lives telling this ridiculous story. I don't know how Mel Brooks did it, but not only did he make this a beautiful movie, he managed to make this cast of crazy people all work together, and it's absolutely fantastic.
It's the whole conceit that Frankenstein is actually probably the smartest, more mature character throughout that whole film, because everyone else is really like egomaniacal or just a buffoon. I mean, that's why I think it works. I think it's everybody's at full tilt too. There's no kind of trying to be subtle with this. They have just gone there, if you know what I mean. And it pays off because the jokes are so strong in this. I challenge to think there is a minute, and I'm serious. I think if we timed it a minute, there is no way a minute goes by without a joke. It is constantly chock-a-block with visual gags, with verbal gags, with double entendres. It's a feast.
It is an absolute smorgasbord. And sometimes in comedies like this, you have a weak link, and there is no weak link in this movie.
No.
Every time one of these characters shows up, when Madeline Kahn shows up as Elizabeth, she doesn't just steal the show, she just adds to the show. And it's the same thing when Kenneth Mars shows up as Inspector Kemp with that thing right there.
Love that.
It just makes it better. Cloris Leachman in every single scene she's in is as Frau Bulka. she just, I don't know. I said earlier that Marty Feldman is the only one who steals every scene he's in, and it's just because he had such a unique look, just the bug eyes and his delivery on every line. I love this movie so much. Sorry, everybody. This is just going to be me gushing over Young Frankenstein, because this movie has no faults, and if you disagree, you are wrong. Give me your address. I will find you.
No, it is absolutely. It's probably comedy perfection. I really right now. Someone might have some other examples, but really, when for me, it's films like this that are certainly. I think they're a bar that have never been matched since. It's such a special film. I mean, you're talking about Marty as Igor, amazing. Eye-gor, like the hump moving places to the fact of Abby Normal. I mean, it just goes on, and it just works so well, that character. Gene Wilder, brilliant performance, playing this jaded, what does he call himself? Dr. Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, yeah, exactly. Who clearly has some parental issues, and is trying to do it. And for him, it's a movie about fate, because he's trying his hardest at the beginning of the film to have nothing to do with that family, and eventually finds himself carrying on a family legacy, which is great.
Yeah, sometimes you just can't escape that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can't.
No. I love Gene Wilder's performance because he just has that golden age of Hollywood look about him. You know, the big blue eyes, kind of the hammy acting, which in any other movie would not work, but here it just fits so perfectly. And then the fact that he can go from that dramatic golden age Hollywood actor to borderline insanity raving just like that is fantastic. I think that probably one of my favorite jokes in the entire movie is at the beginning whenever he's got the scalpel and he stabs himself in the leg, and he just has this reaction where he just class, it's missed. Nobody could deliver a line like Gene Wilder. And I miss seeing him in new things. And I know he hasn't been in anything new even years before he left this world. But my gosh, I missed seeing him in things.
Oh, this is peak Wilder. There's no doubt. And the great thing about his character, and you kind of touched on it, the fact that he goes insane, and the result of his insanity, like the big plan of what he's going to do with Frankenstein, is to do a musical number of Putting on the Ritz, which is kind of a corny joke, but you just nailed it. It's the deliverance of that thing, which is just hilarious. And at that point, you're still crying laughter. How long is this movie? 105 minutes. So 95 minutes into this movie, you're still laughing your backside off. It's just so well done. You know, it's hard to find a weak spot, and I just don't think there is. I think it's one of these movies that well, I'm putting it this way. I assume this film is being studied in film school. I assume this is an example of how to make a comedy. And honestly, I'm just going to put it out there, Jace. I don't think he ever matched this height. And I love all of his films. Dude, I even like Life Stinks. You know, I like that film.
I've never seen that one. I need to watch that one because
the
fact that there's a Mel Brooks movie out there I haven't seen bothers me. I need to watch it.
You need to find it. You need to find it. But I like the level of his brilliance and the fact that here's his peak. Even by the time he's getting to Robin Hood, you know, or he's getting to
which is still a good movie.
Still a good movie. It's a great movie.
Still a good movie.
That's my point. It's still hilarious. It's still hilarious.
You know, night is young and you're so beautiful.
Yeah. One of the first performances of Dave Chappelle, very young Dave Chappelle is in that film.
Achoo.
Yeah, there you go. And Spaceballs is a big high as well. But this film, I think everything came together. Everything just locked together to make this. I mean, you mentioned the actors. Everyone's in their prime here. Peter Boyle had just, I think, hit big with a movie called Joe that had come out a couple of years earlier, which kind of brought him into the zeitgeist in the 70s. Marty Feldman was a big British comedic star. So we kind of knew of him before he was in this film here in Australia because back then, you know, under the Empire, we got all British TV. Cloris Leachman, I didn't know much about her. I was shocked to realize she was way younger than she looked in that film. I think I saw her in another Mel Brooks film, it might have been Silent Movie or High Anxiety. She was in one of them. Oh, wow, you're way younger than.
I will remember Miss Leachman forever from History of the World Part 1.
Oh,
she's playing the old crone, and you know, let's end this meeting on a high note. I used to be in radio, believe it or not. This golden voice used to be transmitted over the radio waves, and every time my show ended, I would play that clip. Let's end this meeting on a high note, and I loved that so much, and I don't care if anybody else loved it. I did, and that's all that mattered.
Well, History of the World Part 1, I was actually very blessed to see that in the cinema. So that's 1981. So I would have been
old
7 at that time seeing History of the World Part 1. Yeah, I know. I remember the night. I remember going into the cinema. Like, I can't tell you where my car keys are right now, but I remember that stuff. No problem.
So, okay, so you were 7 years old and you were exposed to QuickTime Harch.
Yeah. Mate, they
Good
didn't
Lord.
care what they took me to back then. They took me to everything. I saw Raging Bull in the cinema. Like,
Oh my God.
it explains a few things about my personality, doesn't it, James?
Just
I
a
think you've known me
few,
long enough.
yeah.
But
I'm not gonna say a thing. I had irresponsible parents too.
We're
One of
Gen
my first
X.
movies I remember watching was the original Friday the 13th, so I ain't gonna say a thing.
Yeah. Mate, we were Gen X. Parents didn't care then, and I'm thankful for it. I have no regrets.
We were raised on hose water and neglect. That's right.
Yep, absolutely. No, look, this is a film that geez, I'm stunned that it hasn't even diminished for me a couple of percent in a rewatch, because I did do another rewatch,
If
and I'm
anything,
shocked.
if
Yeah.
anything, I think that this movie elevates over time because you truly understand that this is not just a screwball comedy. This is a beautifully shot, beautifully crafted, beautifully acted masterpiece. And I don't use that word unironically very often, but Young Frankenstein is without a doubt in my mind, and it should be in yours too. It is an unabashed masterpiece. Somebody once asked Roger Ebert, what makes a film a great film? And his answer was 3 great scenes and no bad scenes. Every scene in this movie's great, and there are no bad things. That is a masterpiece.
100%. I couldn't argue with that. Well, it was released, this film, back on December 15th, 1974. So I was just under a year's old when this thing was initially released.
I was a concept of a plan at this point.
Yeah. It had a budget of $2.78 million, which is a moderate budget for 1974. It wasn't a super cheap film, but it wasn't a super expensive film. But oh boy, did audiences love this movie, because it had a box office return of $86 million. So they invested 3 and they got back 86. That's a hit. That's a big hit. So
deservedly
yeah.
so. It deserved every penny it got and more.
Well, and I mean, you think that it was a double knockout punch in 74, because we had this and his other seminal film. I would say this film, Young Frankenstein, is far less controversial in today's zeitgeist, but Blazing Saddles. We got Blazing Saddles the same year as well.
Which I will argue, not quite to the level of Young Frankenstein, but very close. Very close. Great. I think that one is Mel Brooks' second best movie.
I saw that too young, but you know my always favorite bit was the end of that film, because I was a young kid and I just love the idea.
Where they just say screw it and they go all meta. Yeah.
And they don't get arrested by the police, and it was just like he didn't have an ending, but it didn't matter. You know what? Another one of his
My favorite thing about Blazing Saddles is the fact that it was remade into a children's cartoon called The Legend of Hank, which is a remake of Blazing Saddles. They even use some of the same dialogue, and the fact Mel Brooks is in that movie too is just, I just think it's funny. They go up to Mel Brooks and they're just like, "Hey, which movie of yours would you like remade into a children's cartoon?" Huh? How about Blazing Saddles? That's a great idea. We can't do it the way you did. How about we do it with cats and dogs? Perfect. Let's do it. Shoot it. Can we do it for $70,000? We're going to need 70 million, but sure. Okay.
Hey, was this film also turned into a musical itself? Quite a successful Broadway musical, I believe, in the end.
Of course it was turned into a successful Broadway musical. I mean, come on, that Putting on the Ritz bit, that is just all about Broadway.
That's a showstopper, isn't it?
Absolutely. I've never seen the show, but I want to.
Yes, absolutely. An interesting.
If the producers is any indication about the longevity of a Broadway show based on Young Frankenstein, get me a seat. I will sit in it.
Well, it was interesting what he did after this, because he did 2 interesting films, which I both love. And one of them as a kid, as a small child, I absolutely adored Mel Brooks, which was Silent Movie. Have you ever seen Mel Brooks' Silent Movie?
I have seen Silent Movie, but I'm going to admit it has been a long time and my memories of it has vanished. So I need a desperate rewatch of that movie.
I always just remember because of the great joke that the only person who speaks in the entire film is Marcel Marceau, which is a great joke. Well, probably the most famous mime ever. So, yeah. And then he did High Anxiety, which is a great Hitchcock parody, which I absolutely loved as well. So, no. Yeah, Mel Brooks just kept knocking it out. In fact, I think, what was the last one he did as director? I think was actually Dracula, Dead and Loving It. Was his
Dracula,
final film?
Dead and Loving It, which was it was a misfire. I remember seeing it in theaters, but I will say that my appreciation for it has gone up over the years. I still don't think it's that great of a movie.
Yeah.
But I definitely think better of it now than I did at the beginning, because I think the first time I saw it, it was just crushing disappointment. But now I'm just like, you know what? As a movie, it's not bad.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, this is a perfect film. I know anyone who's seen it out there would dare to try to argue with us about it. But if you are that brave, you should, shouldn't you, Jason? Why should they engage with us?
Well, you should engage with us because the YouTube algorithm really appreciates that kind of thing. Oh, you mean like, okay, like heartfelt. Well, of course, you should always tell us about your favorite movies. You know, if Young Frankenstein is not your favorite Mel Brooks movie, what's wrong with you? But please do tell us, what is your favorite Mel Brooks movie? We say there's no bad scenes in Young Frankenstein. Do you think there are? You're wrong, but go ahead and tell us in the comments below. And of course, while you're there, please visit our Patreon. There is a link to it down below, and you can sponsor this nonsense for a measly pittance of $5 a month or more. We did have somebody who joined our $50 club the other day, and thank you so much. I owe you a roast. I was waiting until I was completely over my flu to do it, and I think I'm just about there. So prepare yourself. It's coming.
Brilliant stuff. And then on the next show, we're going back into the Superman franchise with Superman 3, Jason.
Yes.
And what could possibly go wrong? Nothing.
It's Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor never did a bad thing in his life.
It contains the scariest moment in any Superman film ever made. So, but we'll talk about that next time.
But I will also say, Superman 3 also contains, in my opinion, the best Superman scene of all time. At least the Christopher Reeves years. And if you don't agree, well, what can I say? You're just wrong.
Well, I don't even know what you're referring to, so I look forward to hearing it.
You'll know when it gets there. Then after that, we got a special. We have a special coming up because our next episode after Superman 3 will be on St. Patrick's Day. And so, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, we have got to pay homage to a great figure from Irish history. We're gonna be looking at the leprechaun. Oh, I'm gonna get your Lucky Charms and your life. So join us for that on St.
I can't wait for that, because
I think stop drinking for 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think of important films out there. I think of Spielberg, does Schindler's List, and things like Remains of the Day, and The Godfather. Then there's Leprechaun. So I can't wait to talk about it.
Hey, I'm gonna get you. I'm the leprechaun.
That's right, guys. I'm gonna end it.
Gold, didn't you? Superman 3 is a great movie.